World-famous bedtime stories from Mom. Today's story is Pinocchio. Long ago, in a quiet village in the beautiful land of Italy, lived old Geppetto, who could craft anything from wood. His house was like a magical workshop, where wooden pieces seemed to come to life. "What shall I make today?" Geppetto mumbled to himself. "Since I have no children, I shall make a wooden puppet to be my boy." He immediately set to work. Clip-clop, clip-clop, he shaped the torso and head. Then scribble-scribble, scribble-scribble, he carved the eyes, a nose, and a smiling mouth. Looking at the finished puppet, Geppetto smiled contentedly. "Ha ha, from now on, you'll be called Pinocchio, my precious Pinocchio." Just then, the villagers knocked and shouted at his door. "Geppetto, what are you making? Show us, please." Geppetto opened the door to welcome them. "Look, everyone, this is my creation, Pinocchio. He's my son, my friend." Amazed, the villagers surrounded Pinocchio, exclaiming, "Wow, it's incredible, Geppetto. Pinocchio looks just like a real boy." "Yes, Pinocchio is made with all my love. Now, he will be with me," Geppetto said. Touched by Geppetto's warm heart and love for Pinocchio, the villagers returned home. That night, Geppetto and Pinocchio looked at each other and smiled happily, marking the beginning of Pinocchio's story. Late that night, Geppetto's workshop was peaceful and quiet, with Geppetto already asleep. But something special was about to happen. Suddenly, a mysterious light filled the room, revealing a beautiful fairy. Gently smiling, she approached Pinocchio and whispered, "Pinocchio, I've come to give you a special gift." With her magic wand, she tapped Pinocchio lightly, enveloping him in a magical light. "Bring joy to your lonely grandfather," she said, bestowing life upon Pinocchio. Suddenly, Pinocchio's wooden body felt warm, and his heart seemed to beat. His eyes slowly opened as he looked around, and asked, "Where am I?" Though his voice trembled, it was filled with the joy of a new life. The fairy smiled at Pinocchio and said, "Now you're alive, Pinocchio. You're the most special wooden puppet in the world. You can't imagine how happy you'll make your grandfather." Then, the fairy quietly disappeared, leaving the room peaceful once more. Pinocchio, deep in thought about his newfound life, waited for Geppetto to wake. As dawn light seeped through the windows, Geppetto's workshop welcomed a quiet, peaceful morning, with Geppetto still deep in sleep. But this tranquility was soon to be interrupted by an astonishing event. "Good morning, grandfather." An unfamiliar voice filled the workshop, coming from somewhere very close. Startled, Geppetto opened his eyes wide to an unbelievable sight. Pinocchio, the wooden puppet he created, was moving and talking. "Grandfather, it's me. Over here." Pinocchio waved and said. Geppetto rubbed his eyes in disbelief. "Pinocchio, is it really you talking?" he asked, amazed. "Yes, grandfather, I can now speak and walk," Pinocchio replied, dancing around joyfully. Geppetto, with tears in his eyes, embraced Pinocchio tightly. "Oh, the fairy must have taken pity on me and sent you as a gift. My little Pinocchio, you've become a real boy now." The workshop was filled with laughter and joy, with Geppetto and Pinocchio looking at each other happily. Geppetto began teaching Pinocchio how to walk and talk. "Pinocchio, there's so much for you to learn in this world, but together, we can overcome any difficulty." Geppetto held Pinocchio's hand, assuring him. Geppetto woke up at dawn, eagerly waiting for Pinocchio to wake. He had a big decision in his heart for Pinocchio. As Pinocchio opened his eyes, Geppetto excitedly said, "Pinocchio, today is a very important day. I'm sending you to school, so you can learn like other children." Pinocchio, wide-eyed, asked, "School? What is that, grandfather?" Geppetto smiled and explained, "School is where you can read, write, and learn about the world. I want you to become wise." But Geppetto was worried. Going to school required books, and he didn't have enough money for them. Finally, he decided to sell his most precious coat to buy books and stationery for Pinocchio. "Look, Pinocchio, now you're ready for school," Geppetto said, handing over the books and stationery. Pinocchio jumped with joy. "Thank you, grandfather. I'll study hard." And so, Pinocchio set off for school. But on his way, he heard the sounds of a puppet show in the village square. "Wow, that sounds fun. I'll use the money grandfather gave me to watch it," Pinocchio thought, tempted by the puppet show rather than school. Reaching the theater, Pinocchio's eyes sparkled. "Ah, this looks so fun. Maybe I can watch for a bit." Pinocchio bought a ticket with the money Geppetto gave him, and entered the puppet theater. The puppet show was truly magical. Wooden puppets danced, sang, and unfolded a story on stage. But while Pinocchio was engrossed in the show, the puppet master noticed him. He was a big, scary man with a rough face. "Ah, a real wooden puppet. If I put him on stage, more people will come. It'll be profitable," he thought, approaching Pinocchio. "Hey, wooden puppet, want to join our stage? It'll be splendid," he said to Pinocchio. Frightened, Pinocchio hesitated. "No, thank you." But in an instant, the man grabbed Pinocchio, tied him up, and disappeared with him. "Help! Help!" Pinocchio cried, but the man took him away to an unknown place. Pinocchio found himself locked in a dark, damp storeroom, unaware of the puppet master's plans. Trembling with fear, he had never felt so alone. "Grandfather, what should I do?" he whimpered, tied up and curled in a corner. Then, a light filled the room, and the fairy appeared. "Pinocchio, I found you," she said softly. Shocked, Pinocchio looked up. "Please, let me out. I won't fall for any temptations again. I promise." The fairy smiled warmly at his tears. "Pinocchio, you must learn from your mistakes. Remember how worried your grandfather must be." Pinocchio nodded. "Yes, I won't disappoint him anymore. I'll go straight home." With a wave of her wand, the ropes untied, and the storeroom door opened. "Go, Pinocchio. Your grandfather is waiting. Make sure you go straight home, understand?" "Yes, I promise," Pinocchio pledged. On his way home, Pinocchio encountered a crafty fox and a cunning cat. "Hey, Pinocchio, join us to the land of toys. It's more fun than you can imagine," the fox enticed. Pinocchio was tempted. "Really? Can I go to the land of toys?" His eyes glittered with curiosity. "Of course, with us. You can go anytime. Come on," the cat added, forgetting the fairy's advice and his promise to go straight home. Pinocchio followed the fox and cat, lured by the land of toys. They started down the road, the fox and cat exchanging glances, pleased with their plan. Pinocchio, imagining the exciting adventure ahead, was thrilled, but the true intentions of the fox and cat were a dark secret Pinocchio didn't know. He thought he was just off on a thrilling adventure with new friends. Arriving at the land of toys, Pinocchio was dazzled. Everything seemed alive, with teddy bears marching like real bears, their drum beats echoing, enlivening the atmosphere. Pinocchio couldn't take his eyes off the sight. "Wow, it's magical," he exclaimed. Then, a toy train whistled past, painted in vibrant colors, filled with laughing toys. Pinocchio chased after the train, excited. "I've never been on such a train." Life in the land of toys was like a dream come true. No school, no homework, no work, just endless fun. Pinocchio and his friends enjoyed every moment, feasting on cakes, ice creams, candies, and staying up late without a care. But there was a terrifying secret hidden in this land. As children played, ate, and lazed around, they slowly turned into donkeys. Yes, into donkeys. At first, no one noticed the transformation, but gradually, their ears grew, and tails appeared. Pinocchio was no exception. His ears grew, and a tail sprouted, but fortunately, he realized the change before becoming a full donkey. In that moment, Pinocchio understood his mistakes, and as his heart changed, the transformation stopped. He had completely forgotten the fairy's promise until then. Suddenly, Pinocchio was startled by the fairy's appearance. She looked at him seriously and asked, "Pinocchio, have you forgotten the promise we made? The promise to go straight home?" Pinocchio, flustered, tried to excuse his situation. "It's not my fault. The fox and cat brought me here," he lied. But as he finished speaking, his nose began to grow longer. His nose extended so much that Pinocchio was shocked. The fairy looked at him sadly and said, "Pinocchio, lies always come with a price. Your nose grew because you lied." Pinocchio touched his elongated nose, shedding tears of regret. "I'm so sorry, fairy. I promise I won't lie again. For real." The fairy approached Pinocchio, comforting him. "Pinocchio, it's important to learn from your mistakes and not repeat them. Keep truth in your heart and always act with honesty." She tapped him gently with her magic wand, and Pinocchio was surrounded by a magical light, returning to his original form. With the fairy's promise etched in his heart, Pinocchio hurried home, longing for Geppetto's warm embrace. After his adventures and the consequences of his lies, "Grandfather, I'm back," Pinocchio called as he opened the door. But the house was silent. Geppetto was nowhere to be seen. Pinocchio searched the house, but there was no sign of his grandfather. "Grandfather? Where are you?" Pinocchio's voice carried his confusion and worry. Then, a neighbor's parrot flew to the window, bringing news to Pinocchio. "Pinocchio, your grandfather went to the sea to look for you, and, I heard, he was swallowed by a whale." Pinocchio gasped in shock. "What? Swallowed by a whale? No, that can't be true." His heart filled with fear and sorrow. He couldn't imagine life without Geppetto. "I must find grandfather. I'll go to the sea and save him," Pinocchio decided, wiping away his tears, ready to embark on a new adventure to find Geppetto, his heart brimming with love and courage. Determined, Pinocchio stood at the edge of a cliff, overlooking the vast sea. "Grandfather, I'm coming," he shouted and jumped into the deep waters without hesitation. The cold sea enveloped Pinocchio, but his heart remained warm with the thought of saving Geppetto. Swimming through the sea, Pinocchio searched for his grandfather. Suddenly, a giant shadow loomed over him. A large whale approached Pinocchio, its mouth wide open. Shocked, Pinocchio saw the whale's gaping jaws, but there was no time to escape. Grandfather, Pinocchio's last cry before the whale swallowed him whole. Inside the dark, damp belly of the whale, Pinocchio regained consciousness after a moment. Despite the darkness, Pinocchio didn't give up. "Grandfather, I'm here." Then, a faint light appeared in the distance. Pinocchio cautiously moved towards it, finding Geppetto by the light's source. "Grandfather." Pinocchio rushed to Geppetto's side, who looked at him in disbelief. "Pinocchio, is it really you? You came to save me, my precious Pinocchio." They embraced each other, tears of joy in Geppetto's eyes. "Grandfather, I came to find you. Let's go home together." In the whale's dark belly, the reunion of Geppetto and Pinocchio was a tearful moment. Pinocchio ran to his grandfather as soon as he saw him, releasing all his built-up fears and worries in an embrace. "Grandfather, I'm so sorry. I should have been more careful. I've put myself in danger many times, but to see you here, it's a relief." Pinocchio sobbed. Geppetto comforted Pinocchio, holding him gently. "Pinocchio, just having you here makes me so happy. Don't be too hard on yourself. What matters is that you're here with me now, safe and sound. I'm just glad to know you're okay." Pinocchio felt reassured in his grandfather's embrace, vowing, "Grandfather, I'll be a good Pinocchio from now on. No more lies, always living honestly. I feel like with you, we can overcome anything." Geppetto and Pinocchio devised a plan to escape the whale's dark belly. They thought if they could make the whale sneeze by lighting a small fire, they could be propelled out with great force. "Pinocchio, if we light a fire here, the whale will sneeze. That's our chance to escape," Geppetto explained. Following his grandfather's instructions, Pinocchio gathered wooden pieces inside the whale and started a fire. As the flames grew and smoke rose, the whale's belly filled with smoke. Soon, the whale felt discomfort and started to sneeze. Hot, so hot. Achoo, cough, cough. The whale's first sneeze shocked Pinocchio and Geppetto, holding on to each other. "Get ready, Pinocchio. This is our chance," Geppetto shouted. At the whale's second massive sneeze, Pinocchio and Geppetto were propelled out of its mouth, flying through the air and landing far away in the water. Emerging from the water, Pinocchio and Geppetto sighed with relief and joy. "We did it, Grandfather. We escaped the whale," Pinocchio exclaimed happily. Geppetto hugged Pinocchio, smiling. "Pinocchio, it's all thanks to you. Without you, I could never have escaped." After their miraculous escape from the whale, Geppetto and Pinocchio finally returned home. Their house was still warm and welcoming, and stepping inside, they felt an immense sense of relief and happiness. That night, Geppetto shared with Pinocchio, "Pinocchio, your courage, love, and honesty have made you a real person." Tears welled up in Pinocchio's eyes, and then, something magical happened. Pinocchio's wooden body was enveloped in a warm light, and when the light faded, Pinocchio found he was no longer a wooden puppet but a real boy. "Grandfather, I've become a person." Geppetto, with tears of joy, embraced Pinocchio tightly. "Pinocchio, Now you're truly my grandson. Your kindness and your big heart will be known to all." From then on, Pinocchio and Geppetto lived happily ever after, enjoying each other's company in their warm, loving home.